Hello everyone, this is Mark Wald with Vinyl Crush, and today we're going to help Chris Propfe celebrate his 1-year anniversary on YouTube, his channel Musically Obsessed. If you haven't seen it, please check it out. He's very knowledgeable, very fun, and subscribe and listen to him. Musically Obsessed, by the way, Chris, is a great channel name. Good choice. So to celebrate, he suggested a challenge of pick a year, grab some albums. So I'm joining in and we'll see what we can do. I chose 1968 for my year. If you enjoy what you see here, please subscribe. And if you have any questions or comments, leave them below. I would love to hear from you. So here we go. 1968, starting with Simon and Garfunkel Bookends. This album, the second side of this album is probably my favorite album side, period. It's unbelievably good. It has Punky's Dilemma, Hazy Shade of Winter, Fakin' It, Mrs. Robinson, At the Zoo, just all incredibly good songs. When they were recording this, Simon and Garfunkel were at the end of their contract that they had with Columbia Records. And in the contract, it was agreed that Columbia would pay for the recording sessions. So they took advantage of that to an nth degree and spent hours and hours and hours and hours recording this album. They spent 50 hours on Punky's Dilemma alone. So the result of which is that this album is very well produced. It sounds incredibly good, and I highly recommend checking it out. So this is first pressing, Columbia 2i labels. I love labels. I love it when other people show them, so I show them. This album also comes with the fold-out poster that has not been hung on a wall yet. It's in mint condition, which is unusual and good to find. I love it when I get lucky like that. Another duo, Nancy Sinatra and Lee Hazelwood. Nancy was incredibly hip back in the 60s, and Lee Hazelwood wrote some great material for her. They sang well together. One of my favorite songs by them is Some Velvet Morning, which is on this album. Great album, first pressing, two-tone reprise labels. Psych rock in the 60s, you bet. So I had to pull out Ultimate Spinach. This is their first album. This is a first pressing, and because it has a hole punch down here, I believe it's also a promo copy. This is great psych rock. If you like Jefferson Airplane, for example, this would probably be right up your alley. First pressing, blue and gold MGM labels. Beautiful, good album. So Bloomfield, Cooper, and Stills. This is an astonishing album. It's called Super Session. Mike Bloomfield was a guitar player for Butterfield Blues Band, Electric Flag. Al Cooper was a session musician. He actually was notorious because he's in on the session with Bob Dylan doing Like a Rolling Stone, and he sat at the organ and started jamming and came up with that organ riff that we all hear on that song that sort of made that song what it is today, and he improvised it on the spot. Stephen Stills from Crosby, Stills and Nash, they do a great cover here on a Donavan song that I love called Season of the Witch. Great song. This is a first pressing 2i Columbia label. This is a grail find for me recently. This is Gabor Szabo's Dreams. This is, first of all, just check out the album cover. Beautiful artwork by David Stahlberg. And Gabor Szabo is basically, he's an accessible form of third stream music. And third stream music is a synthesis of jazz and classical music with an emphasis on improvising. Sometimes that can get a little odd or strange for people's ears, but not in this case. Gabor Szabo's compositions are amazing. He does some great arranging. He does also a cover of a Donavan song called Ferris Wheel from the same album. The album is Sunshine Superman. And great album. Sky labels, first pressing. And as long as we're talking about Donavan, Donavan actually had his own record out in 1968. This is Hurdy-Gurdy Man. The song Hurdy-Gurdy Man is haunting and creative and really fascinating song. The guitar solo at the end of it, there's a lot of talk about who the guitar player was. It wasn't clear whether it was Jimmy Page or I guess there were a number of musicians. Even Alan Holdsworth was on the list of possible musicians that play guitar on here. John Paul Jones was the producer who later on did Led Zeppelin, was in Led Zeppelin, and it is rumored that he brought in Jimmy Page, who at the time was a session musician, to be on this album. Jimmy was actually on the album prior to this by Donavan, Sunshine Superman, and he did the guitar solo for that song. So it's highly likely he's on here too. First pressing, Epic Labels. John Mayall, Blues in Laurel Canyon. Laurel Canyon is that mythical place where all the musicians hung out and lived and partied and jammed and got high and went crazy, just outside of LA. Bands like the Monkees, Frank Zappa, the Beach Boys, Mamas and Papas, Crosby, Stills and Nash, Joni Mitchell, all hung out in Laurel Canyon. And so this is what inspired this album for John Mayall. Mick Taylor plays guitar for him on this album again. He went on to play for the Rolling Stones later. This is the first US pressing on London labels. Jeff Beck, 1968, the album Truth. This album was when he recruited Rod Stewart to sing for him. This is early Rod Stewart. If you haven't heard him with Jeff Beck, it's really good. Jeff came from the Yardbirds, and they had a song of his called Shape of Things that did pretty well. And he re-recorded that with Rod Stewart on this album, and it's good. He also does Ain't Superstitious on here. Great song. I love that song. First pressing, Epic. So this is one of my favorite albums. Cheap Thrills by Big Brother and the Holding Company. Janis Joplin, second album with them. The synergy between the band and Janis was really good on this album. A lot of this was recorded live. They do a haunting cover of Summertime on here. Janis's voice is just unbelievably good. They do a cover of Piece of My Heart, a great R&B tune. Janis does her own I Need a Man to Love, which is just incredible rock and roll song for her. I love that song. I listen to it all the time still. The cover was R. Crumb from the 60s, did a lot of cartoons back then, very famous. This is first pressing 2i Columbia. The Crazy World of Arthur Brown. Not much more you can say about that. It's pretty crazy world. This is performance and art rock at its best. Pretty hard psych rock. Kind of out there for most people. He did have a hit song on this particular album called Fire, but even that, it opens with, I am the god of hellfire, and I bring you fire. Anyway, great song, but the album is a little less accessible than most people care for, but I really like it. A great album cover too. This is on Atlantic. He also put this out on Trax, but Atlantic is what I got. Like those labels. 1968, we have The Doors, Waiting for the Sun. Hello, I Love You was a hit on this, but all of the songs on this album are good, and the recording and the production I thought was very good. Listening to this on a good stereo system is just amazing. I love great production. So I enjoy this album a lot. This is the first pressing, gold label Elektra. Psych rock, Inagata Devita. This is a really good album. All the songs on here are interesting. The guitar work and the organ work is really astounding. You get to hear dated lyrics like Groovy and Flowers and Beads, which makes it kind of fun. And the song Inagata Devita, which was originally titled In the Garden of Eden, but the author of the song was so drunk when he was playing for a friend the night that he wrote it, that the friend woke up the next morning and said, hey, play that song for me again. And he said, what song? And he said, Inagata Devita. And he goes, what? And so then they just decided to call it Inagata Devita instead of In the Garden of Eden. So that's the story of that song. Good album. This is first pressing, two-tone Atco labels. Beautiful colors on this. 1968 also brought us Steppenwolf. This is their first album, but their second album also came out in the end of 68. This has Born to Be Wild, great song for them. John Kay is a great frontman, great guitar player, great singer, and songwriter. 68 also brought us two Jimi Hendrix albums, but I'll just show this one today. Electric Ladyland. The song Electric Ladyland, Have You Been to Electric Ladyland, is on here along with Crosstown Traffic, All Along the Watchtower. And one of, I think, the most kick-ass rock songs ever written, Voodoo Child, Slight Return, is on this album. That song starts off with this sort of strutting, chugging guitar wah-wah sound that the bass drum starts to mimic, and then the bass guitar comes in, and then the guitar just rips it and just kicks you in the face like a really good rock song should. This is a great song. Good album. This is original pressing, two-tone reprise labels. This is a double album. And the last that I have for you here today is the Beatles' White Album, also 1968. This is a remaster. I don't have the first pressing of the original. Would love to have that. Still looking for it. But this is my favorite Beatles album. The members, the Beatles, were all sort of on their own a lot more when they made this album, so they have a lot of really interesting songs on here. Songs like Year Blues and Me and My Monkey. Just really, I think it's like alt rock started in 1968 with this album. Really like it. So that is 1968 for me here tonight. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please subscribe. Putting out some more videos. Check out the stuff I've done already. Hello again to Chris, and congratulations. And please check Chris out as well. Yeah, thanks for hanging out.
And you can move the record. Nice work. So silly. That's ridiculous. Lower. Peek your eyes out of the top of it. That's a good one.